May I ask you a simple question? When you leave your stuff at your workplace, at home, and then you come back to the office, your workplace, at home, and you see somebody moved your stuff, somebody used your stuff, how do you feel? Personally, I feel infuriated because why somebody will touch my stuff? Do you agree with me? Well, imagine the same thing you're doing to somebody as a part of the torture. But you don't torturing the body. You don't touching the human being. Instead of this, you're torturing their mind. That method is called Zersetzung, which translates to decomposition or disintegration. Is a covert and methodical form of such psychological warfare used by the East German Ministry for State Security, also known as the Stasi during the Cold War. The nefarious practice included a variety of measures aimed at destroying the lives, reputations, and mental well-being of individuals perceived to be enemies of the state, or perhaps prospective dangers to East Germany socialist rule. What that means, it's a surveillance, harassing, gaslighting, propagating false rumors, and different sorts of psychological manipulation were all used in Zersetzung. This dark period in history serves as a vivid reminder of the effectiveness of psychological methods in suppressing opposition and keeping control inside authoritarian governments. I have in front of me two books which I used once upon a time when I was in the service. What's called Modern Espionage. It was published in 1980, and another one, Modern Intelligence Community in Europe, of course, as well, 1980. And Zersetzung has been applied in Eastern Bloc. Following World War II, the Ministerium for Staatssicherheit, MFS, commonly known as the Stasi, was the internal security agency for the German Democratic Republic, often known as East Germany. I have just some memorabilia here with me, which I got it from my old friends in Eastern Germany in the 80s. So this is their hats. Interesting. Still have it with me. The Stasi surveillance system was the most restrictive and repressive apparatus ever used. Perhaps you witnessed something during 2020-2022 by the most elected democratic governments, how they utilized police, and how they invaded so-called the privacy of the citizens. That is nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mario Bekes. I'm the Guinness World Record holder, and I spent almost 20 years in government sector, 14 years plus in military, security intelligence apparatus, and several years in diplomatic intelligence. And today we're gonna talk about torturing human being without touching. For those who don't know, Germany was divided into two halves between the 1945 and 1990. West Germany, which was integrated into the NATO and Western markets, and East Germany, so-called German Democratic Republic, GDR, which was administered by the Soviet Union. And of course, our friend Vladimir Putin was in charge, counterintelligence officer from KGB within Stasi. Now, let's go into context about Stasi. What is the Stasi? The Stasi is East German Secret Police. Stasi, Ministerium for Staatssicherheit business, had the highest proportion of informants and secret police in history, with 1 out of every 60 people participating. One informant, 60 people. It's dangerous ratio. The Stasi had a system in place to listen in on phone conversation. That's one of the methods, of course. It also had postal cover system that opened international mails and packages, as well as mail addressed to specific individual. Before we move, the more what they done. The surveillance of citizens was a normal in Eastern Bloc. I was in Yugoslavia in the 80s. I was in military school, and we've been told what to put in letters, what not to put in letters, who to communicate, who don't communicate. And that made sense, of course, because people are being educated that everything what we see, everything what we do, it belongs to us as citizens. However, The government controlled everything. Stasi was gone even further. However, people have a terrible perception that believing that when the Stasi will open the mail, what they do, they're gonna go arrest the person. Wrong. That's where they go into this dividing the type individuals and groups, how they're gonna deal with them. Not everybody was arrested, tortured physically, executed, sent in prison, and list goes on. You must understand, information, it's the most valuable commodity in business in a war as well. And Stasi was a master of information. Now, as I said, they have this postal cover system and they open international mail packages. The Stasi as well kept a track of all foreigners who were allowed to enter East Germany. In Yugoslavia was the same thing. In fact, there was a department tasked with determining whether or not somebody had illegal Western food in their garbage. Garbage. I'm going to talk about trash intelligence in some other my episodes. I want to teach you something today. What Stasi used it as a torture of somebody's mind. The Stasi used it as well as a scent approach. Scent, the smell. Collecting odor samples from a suspect to strengthen their files. Scent. The Stasi collected and compared the smells of the dissidents in a systematic and covert manner. Do you understand what they did? So like they will collect a smell, the scent of the individual, and then put in your file, then compare in today's systematic and covert manner. Dogs, for example, may be able to match the scent of protest rally flyer to that of a suspect organizer. That's how clever they were. You can call this whatever you want, but they're utilizing every possible mean on their disposal to identify either individual, which is going to lead them to the group, or the group who's going to lead to other individuals. Today in the Stasi Museum, you can see rows of jars with a yellow fabric inside. Stasi will not survive if it didn't employ large informant army. So the Stasi deployment of the vast number of informants distinguish it from prior monitoring systems. In Germany, they were known as informal collaborators. Or better known IMS, Infozieler Mitarbeiter. So they were getting these roles as informants. They get their names have been protected, their identity be protected. It was very important that informants being protected because informants is not just some worker in a factory or some soldier or some police officer. You'll not believe how many politicians were actually informants as well, the generals, and the list goes on. As an illustration how much or how such monitoring could work. This is the army, it's a vast army of informants, and the Stasi had this on disposal. The West German news magazine called Der Spiegel once featured in the inquisitive Hausfrau, wife or woman, who was requested to water her neighbor's plants while they were abroad and uncovered the ingredients for the wonderful and expensive West German pudding by East German standards. That's how far they gone. It was enough for him to lose his job when he was neighbor-informed state security. I mean, that is, even for my standards, and I was being trained quite extensively, it's a little bit too harsh. But that was their agenda. So let's go talk about Stasi agenda. They have the idea to capture them young. But who? Informants. Worse, almost 10,000 of those informants were under the age of 18. They were children, many of whom were possibly spying on other parents. Now, how did the Stasi convince individuals to act as informants? That is what you need to pay attention. Number one, it's invocation of patriotism. Money or tangible benefits, threats of prosecution and or offers of immunity are example of maybe of blackmail, and then presenting the assignment as a thrilling adventure. When you have the young people, that's what you're doing this. There's a MICE methodology as well, money, ideology, coercion, and the ego you're applying in recruiting informants for the services I used to work. It's called the MICE. But this is for the young people. Another token, I want you to as well understand another thing, that Stasi was expanding exponentially, right? And when you expand the service as a Stasi was controlling the borders, the foreign intelligence, internal police, army, and, they had a truly tremendous task in front of them. But they didn't go to the regular way of recruiting people, because don't forget one thing, I'm saying this from my experience, you don't go knocking on the door to somebody and say, "Hi Stasi, my name is Mari, I want to work for you." They don't care. They don't pay attention for this. They're searching for you. That's how intelligence works. They identify you. However, Stasi was already realizing at early stage that if their parents working for Stasi, why we don't grab their kids to work for Stasi? We already have the background, parents were being checked, vetted, and the due diligence being done. So we have the kids. On the other hand, they will get young kids, very young kids, to spy on their parents. So in a vocation of patriotism, money or some benefits, threats of prosecution or offers to immunity, that's some type of examples, as I say, of blackmailing. And then as well tell them, you're doing this as a 007, in short. That was something what was being applied by Stasi. So don't forget, there was two type of youngsters being recruited, one for the Stasi and one who will become informant for the Stasi. Let's go talk about this tactic in action called Zersetzung. Following the Soviet soldiers' crushing of the East Germany public uprising in June 1953, those who don't know, 1950s was very, very revolutionary years. And it was in Hungary, it was in East Germany, it was Czechoslovakia, it was everywhere. So East Germany didn't have the army, it had some type of police, so Soviet used their soldiers to crush the public uprising. So the government charged the Stasi with thorough population surveillance and disruption prevention. So the Stasi was being literally tasked to disrupt and prevent possible uprising. This began with a harsh physical repression. Police and secret police, imprisonment and physical abuse. That's a torture. So many people. However, this began to alert in the 1970s when the GDR, East Germany, became increasingly concerned with maintaining a positive international image. And repression of activists became more and more subtle. Those who don't know, and I remember as a kid, East Germany, was being always had the sports people, type of competition where the girl, she literally looked like a man because of the steroids, and they really, really try to have this international recognition because one country is divided in two, West and East Germany. And, one was already being across the globe, but other one was pushing so much to be recognized, being seen as a positive international partner. To characterize its harassment operations, the Stasi adopted the military term Zersetzung, which means attrition or corrosion. The goal was to severely limit the ability of individuals and groups to carry out their activities, ideal to the point where they cease it entirely. Have you heard of this expression, people jump from the balcony, fall from the window, they go mad, they don't know what to do, how to do? That is when you are torturing somebody else's mind. And today environment, we can apply this into social media environment. We'll come to this a little bit later. So, Zersetzung, its word originally meaning of the composition, makes transition. To translate, very difficult. Transition between, the composition and torture, it's very difficult to translate. However, it's a rather accurate description. So what was the goal? The goal was to subtle weakens people's confidence. For example, by destroying their reputation, engineering professional failures, and cutting personal ties. In view of this, East Germany was relatively modern dictatorship. Very modern. The Stasi did not target every dissident for arrest. What they did, it's actually they preferred to paralyze institutions because it had access to so much private information and so many of them. The major goal of the Zersetzung was to render the group ineffective in order to preclude any favorable media or public exposure. That was their goal. Typically, groups were turned off by following. So I want you to understand they were targeting the groups. For what reasons? To cause the friction between the members. Money, personal sexual connections, and philosophical or political subjects were very effective at causing friction. The goal was to render the group so ineffective in order to avoid any favorable media or public exposure, as well to hinder and sabotage activities by the use of one or more infiltrators who agree to accomplish that task but never complete them, misplace materials, equipment, continuously seek revisions and further edits of material to slow down production, as well to attempt to distract the group into more innocuous activities, and so on. There's another thing. They need to separate the organization from other activists, for example, by spreading rumors about bad behavior and political convictions. Of course, the approaches used in any given case were chosen based on extensive psychological profiling and information about the group members, such as who performs what roles, who completes what types of activities, what relationship exists within the group, and who hangs out with whom. Now, that was a Zersetzung for groups. Now, let's go more Zersetzung for individuals. In essence, you have that method which actually create madness. If you ask somebody one question 100 times, that person's gonna lose. They need you, but they're gonna lose their mind. That's just a start. Or you misplaced the documents, or you misplaced the black book with the names. You lost the money. And then the group becomes ineffective because they're fighting amongst each other, the rumors being spread. But how they actually come into this group. So the Stasi will use not just informants, but collaborators, the people who are not just to become the part of this group because they've been blackmailed or been told to do this one, but because they want it. Every intelligence organization has operatives who have been trained to become you. They come in your presence and become the part of your network, your group, believing that they are the greatest for you. And of course, those people have been trained operatives who will sabotage on every corner. So we come from groups to individuals. Similar to Zersetzung for organizations or the groups, comes this one for individuals. And this is the part you need to understand more than for the groups. This is designed to switch off that person's effectiveness by diminishing their self-assurance and their faith in the importance of their task. The Stasi didn't care if a person shut down due to disappointment, fear, burnout, or mental illness because all results were acceptable. And the officers involved didn't care about the mental health or social status of the people, either during or after operation. This you can translate today on social media. As I mentioned at the beginning, between 2020 and 2022, I was trying to understand what's happening on social media, and there was a lot of clashes, a lot of groups. People talk about misinformation and disinformation, and I truly believe that this type of torture, classified Zersetzung, your mental torture, was being applied without their even understanding. So individual Zersetzung was often performed by gradually diminishing the target's quality of the life, both socially and at work, in order to simply demolish the target's confidence. The techniques took several forms, including causing problems at work, disseminating misleading information, and so forth. Sounds familiar? Social media? Even when rumors and information were transmitted around co-workers, superiors, and social circles, they were frequently plausible lies. They are plausible lies that were difficult to establish or deny. For example, concerning incorrect political views, inappropriate behavior, the potential they have informants, and so on. Every operation has stages or elements how to be performed, conducted, and must have the modus operandi. Zersetzung strategy as well has the stages. So let's go start with the stage number 1. First stage is initial stage of Zersetzung was thorough examination of publicly available data and information, including as medical records, school reports, police, intelligence, the list goes on. They were looking for any social, emotional, or physical flaws that could be used to put pressure on a target. Perhaps husband or cheating on wife, criminal histories, alcoholism, drug use, difference between the target and their group, such as age, class, clothing styles, everything that could be used to socially isolate them. Following that, a comprehensive plan was developed with the following elements. What was the specific goal? What techniques should be used to exploit the target, circumstance and personality? How much time did it take? And that leads us to the second stage. In second stage, it's typically involved supplementing covert surveillance with overt observation to inform the victim that the Stasi was interested in them and to instill a sense of anxiety and fear. You know, when they said to, I remember my kid, I said, I'm seeing you, what you're doing. And he was like, He wasn't sure, am I lying or not? Of course, many times I didn't know what he's doing. I just used my intuition. But imagine when you're living in a country where the secret police is everywhere and anywhere, and every person can be informant, and somebody approaches you, say, Stasi has eyes on you. Yeah, of course, anxiety and fear. You will shit your pants. Well, at least I know from my experience when I was working in intelligence services when we done this. Some of the tactics utilized included questioning, repeated stop and searches, strange noises on the phone lines, the trips to the workplace to alert management and co-workers that the police were interested and so on. But you don't do nothing. So this is what the intelligence agency were doing in communism. Don't forget, they were doing that. They done this as well on the West, particularly FBI, as Mr. Hoover was doing. But one thing you must know, you can't listen every phone conversation. Doesn't matter how much technology you have, but it's the people who need to listen to conversation. But if you make sure that line is a little bit cracking and people say, they're listening, you be careful what you say, or give that impression that they are on top of you, that is the problem. Third stage. That's the final stage, which involves verbal and physical abuse. Imagine somebody is moving furniture around the house. You come home and there's a furniture being rearranged. Perhaps your socks are from drawer number 1 to drawer number 3. Sometimes in hotel room, somebody leaves the alarm. I'm very pissed off, 3 o'clock in the morning, alarm goes beep, 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 beep. Somebody was very funny. That's a hotel room. But imagine every day your alarm goes 4 o'clock in the morning instead of 7 a.m. How would you feel? You will knew something's wrong. Or perhaps there's no coffee left. You're looking for the coffee everywhere in the house. There's no coffee. Your bikes and cars was being damaged, slashing tires. Suddenly rumors come around you. Or somebody making purchases and booking appointments in the target's name and so on. Families were frequently used as a form of blackmail against activists at this time, with oppressive family members, for example, exerting indirect pressure on the activists or as a tool for persuasion. Your daughter will get into serious trouble if she stays involved in that group. Can't you make her see sense? Her marriage or career are at stake. Now, being arrested repeatedly, being physically attacked on the street, for example, by plainclothes police officers, or being subject to abuse and assault as a result of rumors such as bullying at work or avoidance by neighbors, are examples of physical harassment. That is Zersetzung. It is well-known knowledge that the modern Germans are reluctant to reveal information to parties other than German government. And why is that? They also disagree on various areas of surveillance. Given the legacy, we can see why. They are concerned about consequences because they have witnessed the dangers of widespread government surveillance. So imagine you wake up in the morning and then you see there's no coffee. You go in a car, somebody slashes your tires. You come on a workplace, people look at you differently. And you're wondering why. Okay, you know that you disagree with the government, but your mind goes crazy. That's what the Zersetzung it is. That's how it's starting, and that's how it's been implemented. is not torturing your body, but your mind. And military saw potential in this many, many years ago. East German Stasi implemented decomposition or disintegration as a covert methodical form of psychological warfare. And that methods paid off. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section below what do you think about this.